Hope everyone's having a pleasant morning. We just got our tires replaced on this 2020 Tesla Model S Long Range Plus. We've had it just over 43,000 miles. It's at 83,000 now. We got it June of last year at about 40,000. So we've put 43,000 miles on it in just over 13 months, going on 14 months. Great car, love it to death in a lot of ways. That's not the point of what we're talking about today. The point of what we're talking about today is the tires. When we got this car, again, at 40,000 miles a year ago and change, we had them replace the tires that were on it because by our estimation, the tires that were on it were the original tires that came with it 3 years and 40,000 miles previously. And they were very badly worn down. They were making a ton of noise. And in fact, they were so badly worn, at least on the inside edges, especially in the back, that the place where we get our tires done would not even rotate them. They said these tires are unsafe to even rotate, and because of liability reasons, we won't even rotate them for you. And so again, we made Tesla, which is where we bought the car. We made Tesla put a brand new set of OEM Goodyear Eagle tires on them, on the car, and those are not run flat tires. And again, those tires got us through a year and about 43,000 miles, 42,000 miles. And there's nothing wrong with them, but the problem in a Tesla, as with a lot of other cars, is that they don't have a spare tire. And if you wanted to get one and take it upon yourself to either get a donut or a full-size tire, it would take up a large amount of your storage space. It's not like you can stick it in the front, in the so-called frunk of your car. You can't, it's too big. And so because of that fact, you have to rely on the roadside assistance if you get a flat tire in this car. And depending where you take your car, if you're like a city dweller, that's one thing. But if you take your car cross country and you're driving through the middle of Nebraska in the dead of winter, if you're driving through Iowa in the dead of winter, or the mountains of Pennsylvania, as we are right now, you might not even have cell phone coverage, let alone have a wrecker anywhere near you to be able to get to you and fix your tire or change it in any reasonable amount of time before you're camping out like you're a homesteader on the Oregon Trail. And again, in the dead of winter, that's not the most pleasant experience. And so it's not exactly a smart proposition, at least in our minds, to rely on roadside assistance to come save you. Maybe you've got a tire that isn't a standard size, and maybe you've got a puncture in your tire that's the kind of puncture they're not going to want to fix. These days, tire shops and probably AAA are only going to want to fix a puncture that's like almost like dead center in your tread. If it's near the sidewall, if it's within like an inch or two of the sidewall, they might say, no, this is unsafe to fix and we're not going to plug it, and force you to buy a brand new tire, as has happened to us, I guess, twice in the last year or so. And so, again, depending how you like to live, if you like to live dangerously, that's one thing. But no, if you take a lot of road trips and you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, maybe in the dead of winter or maybe in the middle of summer, and you're driving through Death Valley, no, you don't want to have to rely on roadside service to come save you. Again, especially if you have a car that has a specialty tire size. And let's be honest, most tire sizes are not typical anymore. It's not like there are 5 or 6 or 8 tire sizes that every single car is going to have. Some cars have different tires from front to rear, and it's a staggered tire size. So that just seems like a very, very bad idea. If you have a car that does not come with a spare tire, to expect roadside service to come save your butt. And even if you have a car that does have a spare tire, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your 16-year-old daughter, and they're driving it through a place where you really wouldn't want them breaking down by themselves and trying to change their tire. And we're not not going to name names, but there are certain parts of the country, certain parts of this state, where you don't want your spouse or a teenager to break down and have to change their tire by the side of the road in the middle of the night and then have to defend their lives with deadly force. It's just not the kind of experience you want them to have to go through, if you can avoid it. And so that's where run flat tires come in. And you can only have run flat tires, by the way, if you have a certain type of tire and a certain type of wheel, because the aspect ratio, meaning the height of the sidewall divided by the width of the tread, and that's called your aspect ratio. So if you have like a 75 series tire in your SUV or pickup truck, a 75 series tire has too much sidewall and it's too tall, and I don't think they make a run flat in a 75 series tire, or maybe a 70, or maybe even a 65. You've got to have, again, just guessing here, you've got to have about a 55 or a 50 series tire, meaning a very, very short sidewall, in order for run flat technology to work. And this car here, the 2020 Tesla Model S Long Range Plus, has a 45 series sidewall, meaning the height of the sidewall divided by the width of the tread is 45%. And then there are other tires that have a 40 or even a 35, like in your what was that, the old Countach, they had a 35 series tire, meaning a very, very, very short sidewall. And the reason why is because that sidewall has to be extremely thick and extremely heavily reinforced in order to be able to support the weight of your car when it has no air pressure in it. And so, again, a very tall sidewall, like a 75 series, like you'd get in your SUV or pickup truck, it's just too tall in order to be built thick enough to rigidly support the weight of your vehicle. Now, we're going to pull over here in a second. The car actually took us off the road to avoid it's navigating us on a detour in order to avoid some kind of a car on fire on the highway. But so again, you have to have a certain size tire in your car in order to even have the option of a run flat. And in this car, fortunately, you do have that option because it's a Tesla and it's got 45 series tires. And so we actually had a Tesla prior to this one, a 2016, also a Model S. It was called the 85D. Had a little bit smaller battery, a lot less range, and we actually had a blowout at highway speeds in Pennsylvania, not in the middle of nowhere, fortunately, at 75 or 80 miles an hour, and had to get the car flatbedded to a tire shop. Now, lucky for us, we were only like 10 miles away from a tire shop, and so we lost a night. It happened at like 7 or 8 p.m. And so we had to get a hotel, which fortunately, lucky for us, happened to be right next to the tire shop. And so we just camped out for the night, and the next morning we got the tires replaced. And we needed to get all four done anyway. And in that case, that was summer of 19. We got Continental run flats put on that previous Tesla. And those things held up just fine. I want to say they lasted about 35, 40,000 miles. And just like every other Tesla Model S, those tires experienced an enormous amount of wear on the inside edge in the back because of the fact that the tires, the alignment on this car, on the Model S, it has the rear wheels cambered or tilted really, really steeply in order to support high-speed handling and have enough of a contact patch so that you don't break traction in the rear during, again, high-speed handling. And the tread wear, the overall tread wear was not the reason we had to get rid of them. The inner wear, again, the excessive wear on the inner portion of the rear tires, even if you rotate them religiously, is the reason we had to get rid of those. Now, those things were fine. The big rap against run flats is that they give you a really the ride is too stiff on them. We didn't experience that at all. We had no problem with the ride, either on smooth pavement or on broken pavement. The ride was just fine. And so if those were available, we would probably have gotten them again. The place where we took the car to get new tires, this tire did not offer Continentals. It offered Bridgestones, and the ones we got were Bridgestone DriveGuard Plus run flats. And so those are the ones that we actually had put on yesterday afternoon. And we have since driven about 450 miles on them. And from Michigan, Southeast Michigan, back to Pennsylvania, where we live these days. And here's what we can say about Bridgestone DriveGuard Plus run flat tires. As of right now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with them. And we'll show you what the tread looks like, the tread pattern. But we've driven them on the highway mostly, and in dry weather, and in rainy weather, and in torrential rain. And they have absolutely no issues either in dry weather or in very, very rainy weather, and in very deep rain, you know, when it's coming down hard and the highway's starting, and it's starting to puddle up on the highway. Had no issues with hydroplaning at all. And here's what they look like. So you can see the sipes go really deeply. You can see the voids, the grooves in them are nice and big. I'm gonna say it's about a quarter-inch deep, maybe 8 or 10, 30 seconds, and more than a quarter-inch wide. And there's 4 of them as you go across the width of the tire. And again, those sipes are nice and deep, and the voids are nice and big. Now, they're not as aggressive as something like the Goodyear Aqua Tread, because the Aqua Tread had a huge, an enormous groove in the middle in order to clear out lots and lots of rain. And these are, and you can tell they're run flats because it says RFT. And again, it's a, I think it's a 245, 45, 19. So I don't want to draw too many premature conclusions, but after about 450 miles, again, almost entirely on the highway, we've got no issues with these tires. It's amazing how quiet new tires are. You know, when you've driven on the same tires for tens of thousands of miles, naturally they start to get noisy. And you just don't notice it because it happens so gradually. But our previous tires, again, the OEM Goodyears that we had made Tesla put onto the car when we bought it a year ago, when it had 40,000 miles, those tires had gotten noisy and they were making a racket. And you could tell they were noisy, but you couldn't tell just how noisy they were until you get a new set of tires. And these things are very, very quiet. And given that the car doesn't even have an engine, and that it's got very little wind noise, most of what you hear when you're driving on the highway is tires. And so these things, when they were brand new, and even with close to 500 miles, they're still basically brand new. They are exceptionally quiet. Like, and we've had this thing up to 90 plus miles an hour, and it's astonishing how quiet these things are. So we don't have a problem with the ride. The ride is just fine. The ride does not feel appreciably stiffer than the previous tires, which again were not run flats, which were the OEM Goodyears. And we don't have a problem with noise. And we definitely don't have a problem with wet weather traction in severe thunderstorms. And those, again, are the three major things that people tend to have a beef with when it comes to run flat tires. Now, Consumer Reports, or as some people call them, Con Job Reports, has tested these exact tires, again, the Bridgestone DriveGuard Plus, and they have said you can let all of the air out of them, like air it down to 0 PSI. And when you drive it, it doesn't even feel like it's flat. You can't even tell you're driving on a flat tire because the sidewall is so stiff that it can support the weight of the car with no issues. And I guess it doesn't even get that squirmy when you're turning, although they probably didn't put it through extreme handling tests. But that's impressive. That's enormously impressive, because the Continentals, those Continental run flats that we had at one point, I want to say one of them did get down to 0. It had a slow leak, and we had to drive it, I don't know, 3 or 4 miles. And no, you could tell it was flat. It was abundantly clear that thing was flat. And by the way, in a run flat, when it does lose all its air and it gets down to 0 PSI, they say you can drive it for 50 miles at up to 50 miles an hour. But after that point, it's ruined. You know, the sidewall has had to flex so much and it's built up so much heat that it is basically ruined, and you need to get rid of it and replace it. And that's also why a lot of tire shops will not repair a run flat tire, even if you got a puncture and the tire shop was 100 feet away. Literally, if you drove over a nail and then drove 100 feet to a tire shop, they would not, a lot of them won't repair it, because they say, well, I don't trust you. How do I know you didn't drive 50 miles at 50 miles an hour on that thing? And you're lying to me. And the sidewall is shot and completely ruined. So keep that in mind. It's not as if you can get a flat and then drive it your 50 miles at 50 miles an hour and then get it repaired and keep on trucking. No, the way the manufacturer describes it, that sidewall is going to be completely ruined. And it makes sense when you think about it, because the amount of weight that thing has to support and the amount of flexing it's going to do, yeah, that's going to build up a huge amount of heat, and that's going to damage it internally to the point where, no, you're going to want to replace it if you have any common sense. But again, not to belabor the point, after about 500 miles, the Bridgestone DriveGuard Plus, at least for us, is a great tire, and we have no issues with it and would not hesitate to recommend it. Some people say it doesn't have the best traction in the winter. I guess we'll find out. One guy who got a set, like somehow they came apart, they self-destructed, and he is like suing Bridgestone. And the question that naturally comes up is, well, where did he buy them? Couldn't he just take them back to Costco or what have you, and get them replaced, or maybe Sam's Club or what have you? And sounds like he didn't. But we got no issues with these tires. Again, after 500 miles, with that caveat. And as long as you buy them from a place like Costco, Sam's, and have them mounted and get them rotated religiously, if the tires self-destruct, you can just take them back, and I'm sure you'll be taken care of. You might not want to buy them like from Tire Rack, or you might not want to buy them from somebody else and then have your local guy put them on, because then you might not be taken care of if the tires self-destruct. Like the guy said, he hit a bump at 3 miles an hour and the sidewall split and the tire came apart. So I guess, again, we'll see what happens. Thanks everyone, and that's all for now. Talk to you later.